Thank you for watching this video, and in this video I am going to rant again, and in this rant I want to inspire you to look differently at nosy people. Every human being has a nose. Okay, so I'm not talking about that. If you use that definition, everyone is nosy. Nosy people is an expression in English language that describes an individual that keeps mingling him or herself with other people's affairs. It's really like someone that wants to get involved in everything. Now, I'm not promoting the attitude of getting involved in all affairs. I'm not promoting that. So understand it clearly here. What I'm telling you is you need to distinguish clearly between people who just want something to gossip about, and that's why they inform to gossip, and people that are watchful. There's a difference. There are people that are watchful, and there are people who just want to know stuff to gossip about. But according to the world, both are nosy. People don't look beyond, and I'm telling you, look beyond. Look, I'm going to give an illustration now. Hold on. Okay. In this illustration, let's say we're going to the United States now. Let's say you live in, I don't know, Chicago. Or, okay, you live in Chicago. And there's this French community of around 400 French people living in Chicago. Some are from Canada, some are from France, but they all speak French. And amongst them, you have this Spaniard from, he's from Andalusia, Spain. He migrated to the United States 20 years ago. He has his own restaurant that goes well. And he lives within the French community. Let's call him Diego. And Diego, he speaks both Spanish and French fluently, besides English. So, Diego is, well, he has his family, they live there, but Diego is considered a know-it-all. He is considered a nosy individual by the people in the community, in the French community, I mean. Diego knew everything. I'm not saying everything in the absolute sense, but when it comes to social matters, he knew almost everything that was going on in the French community. He knows so much about the community. But here's the thing that people don't notice. Diego, for example, one day he was in his restaurant and this French woman came in with a guy. But this woman was married. Diego thought, oh, maybe it's just a colleague of hers, I don't mind. But then the woman often came to that restaurant with the same man. And he could see at their expression that it was more than just a colleague or a friend. They were intimately involved with one another. So, what did Diego do? Often, when she was sitting there with that man, Diego would pass by, and Diego would talk friendly to them because they are his customers. But while he's so friendly, he gives hints that he knows what's going on. So after a while, the woman stopped coming to the restaurant with that man. Few weeks later, the husband of that woman was dead. He was stabbed several times, and at the hospital they couldn't help him anymore. So then the police now comes and they want to know what happened. So the detectives begin to question people in the French community. Nobody knew what was going on. They all spoke to the Americans that were in that town, in that part of Chicago. And, well, they didn't interact much with the people from the French community. So the detectives couldn't get any further. So one day, one of the detectives found out that the wife of the victim often went to a Spanish restaurant. So the detective came to the restaurant and he wanted to speak to Diego. And when he spoke to Diego, Diego explained everything. So with the help of Diego, they figured out soon why that man was killed. And not only that, because of Diego, there were also cases of child abuse, sexual abuse of youngsters. There were many things that were going on in that French community that didn't add up, and though to Diego, they could solve it. So there were children now that were delivered from child molesters. There were other stuff that were going on that were now stopped, though to Diego. Now, there are a lot of people like Diego. And Diego was not a gossiper. He didn't want to know things about people just so to ran his mouth. He wasn't like that. Diego was alert. When Diego realized something didn't add up, he paid attention. Diego was watchful. Diego, he's from Andalusia, Spain. He grew up in a ghetto in Andalusia. He witnessed crime. And when Diego was a kid, he was almost sexually molested by someone. And here's the thing, that individual that almost sexually molested him was someone of the community. And people knew that man had his sexual deviant attitude. But people didn't address it because people said, you have to mind your own business. You shouldn't be nosy. This whole mind your own business attitude of where Diego grew up almost damaged him psychologically, either for life or for many years. So when Diego was 20, he realized how bad things could have turned out, and he realized that this mind your own business attitude, even though he could understand why people felt that way, he knew it was quite dangerous. Because Diego thought to himself, hold on a minute. So there's a man in the community that's a sexual deviant. He behaves very sexualized towards children or towards the spouses of other men, but people in the community don't deal with it. People want to mind their own business. They respect people's privacy. So Diego thought, hold on a minute. So the privacy of that man, that's possibly a sex offender, is far more important than the safety of the children around. What? Diego was shocked that people thought in such a backwards manner. And Diego realized also that the way his parents treated him, shouting at him, screaming at him, sometimes hitting him with belts and all of that. And when he looked at why they did it, he couldn't account for it. When he confronted his parents almost lost it against him. And Diego found out that his parents were not the type of people he thought they were, and that his relatives enabled his parents' negative behavior. It's then that Diego realized, wait a minute, I'm out of here. I don't want anything to do with these people. So that's how he migrated to the United States. He married a Canadian lady and settled in Chicago. Diego, by experience, he learned that it's important to be watchful of the environment where you live, where you reside. Diego did not have this attitude of minding your own business, being involved in your own routine, and pretend as if everything else does not exist. So Diego now was a blessing in disguise. Even though people thought he was nosy, he should mind his own business, blah blah blah. And here's the issue with many of you listening to this. I say many, I don't say all of you. If this does not apply to you, then don't bother about it. But many of you who are listening to this, you are so centered around your own expectations that expectations you don't evaluate, that you can't look beyond. Look, if you have a community, yes, you have people with families, with jobs, and all of that. Of course, people have their affairs. Of course, you should give people space to have their affairs so they can live. But just because people receive practical space to live doesn't mean that they deserve some kind of sacred space around them nobody should penetrate. But that is the attitude many people have. Look, I'm not telling you to put cameras in people's homes, to put cameras on every corner of the street. I'm not saying that. But come on now. People ought to be watchful about the environment. And here's the thing, most people aren't. And especially in these days, people are so lost in their mobile phones or with their headphones on. They're so distracted, they don't notice anything. Again, I'm not promoting people to dive into other people's affairs just like that. I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you to be watchful. And a lot of bad stuff happen because people are not watchful. People have this selfish, self-centered attitude of wanting to be left alone in their relieved routine, and anyone that disturbs this relieved routine is an invader, should mind their own business, and people go off at them. Well, this attitude is a worldly attitude and is very dysfunctional, and it's an attitude that enables evildoers. Because let me tell you, most cases of child sex abuse or most homicides also in general are preceded by many red flags that people just don't want to notice. If people notice things, they keep their mouth shut because they don't want to get in trouble. Now look, I'm not telling you to openly reveal things of people just like that. I'm not telling you to do that. But come on now, let me give another example. Let's say you have a child at school that has blue marks. And those blue marks are obvious marks that the child has been beaten. You see it on the back of the child, you see it on the legs, so you think, hold on a minute, this goes too far. This can't be discipline, so many blue spots. So, let's say you have a teacher that sees this. The teacher ought to notify the authorities. The school needs to notify that something isn't right here. And you know what? There are communities where this happens. When they see that the child is too aggressive, or the child begins to cry out of the blue, or the child is a bit dissociative, the child that doesn't function well, the school makes a report of it and they report it to the authorities. And the authorities come to the home to investigate what's going on. Now people are saying, no, the government should mind its own business. Our children, our will, our life. No, you're part of a community. And that child is not your personal property. Even though you may have given birth to that child, even though you may feed the child with your income, the child is not your personal property. That child is a human being made in the image of the Most High. He or she will grow up and will have an impact on the community. And if that child isn't properly treated, the mental development will go wrong and demons get access to that such an individual. So that child, if it's not managed well, can become a portal for demons without the child being aware of it, because the child can't be aware of it. That's how you have a lot of people. They have demons attached to them and they're not even aware of it. They can't be aware of it. They need deliverance. They're not evil people. They're not people with negative intention, but they have demons with them and those demons had an opportunity because, well, they were not properly managed by their environment. So let's say now you have a child, Christina. Christina is a young girl, 7 years old, and at school, the teacher sees that she's a bit fearful all the time. The teacher talks to the, how do they say it? Not the director, but the head of the school, and head decides, okay, we're going to report this. Then authorities began to pay attention to the family, and they found out that the mother of Christina was cheating with on her husband, and the boyfriend of Christina's mother had a record for assaulting women. So the authorities began to put a watch on the boyfriend of Christina, and they found out that this man also had other women he was having affairs with. So when they figured out what's going on, one day they arrested the man, and he was in jail. And they also arrested the mother for neglecting the well-being of her child. What happened here? The teacher was watchful. The teacher wasn't lost in her own expectations. The teacher looked to her environment, or to his environment. But let's say now people have this mind your own business attitude, this so-called privacy idolatry, how I call it. Then they would have seen that the child, in this case Christina, was fearful. They would have just leave it alone because it's not their child, it's not their home, it's not their life. And Christina would have grown up being molested several times. She would have forgotten about it, but now she had demons around her, and those demons would use her wounds to work, to trap other people. So Christina may have turned out into a codependent female that needs validation so much that she ended up joining a cult without her being aware that she joined a cult, and this cult was a cult that was involved in kidnapping, all of those stuff. And Christina became a young woman that couldn't think straight. Anyone could take advantage of her any time. What has happened? Though, to the neglect of the environment, she turned out this way. Now, Christina has become a grown woman, so she has responsibility, so she should seek help. I'm not constantly out her personal accountability. I'm not doing that, but she didn't turn out that way by herself. But now, you do have a woman who's codependent, who has demons, and she has been involved with all types of men, and, well, now there's a big mess to deal with. But this mess wouldn't have been there if when she was a kid and things were wrong, people would have paid attention. And not only the teacher, the friends of her mother that knew she was cheating on her husband. She should have told her, okay, lady, we know you have issues with your husband, but come on, you have a family. You can't go out there and seek relief with other men. What the heck is this? Her friends did not hold her accountable. They just enabled her relief-seeking attitude, and this went at the expense of Christina. Okay? And now other people have to deal with the demons that are working through Christina's. So you get what I'm saying here? This mind your own business attitude, or this privacy idolatry, it's counterproductive for the well-being of communities. Now again, I'm not saying that you have to interrogate everyone all the time. I'm not saying that. I'm just telling, be watchful of your community where you're at. Maybe you're a migrant somewhere, or you're there for an internship. Be watchful. If you notice something that doesn't add up, if you don't think it's safe to notify the authorities, at least go into prayer. Intercede. I'm telling you, a lot of folks, their privacy idolatry is what enables a lot of harm around them. And look, I'm going to close with this. If you have someone that's getting drunk often, and he has a driver's license, or she has a driver's license, okay, because there are also women doing this, and she goes, let's say it's a she, and she goes on the road often drunk. After a few times, her driver's license is taken away from her, because the judge will tell her, lady, if you want to get drunk so often, okay, we're not going to prevent you, we can't stop you, but okay, you getting drunk so often, having a driver's license, that's dangerous. It's dangerous for you and dangerous for other people on the road. We're not going to allow this. You and I want you to go and seek help for this because this is wrong. We would agree with something like that. But now let's look further. You have a lot of negative-minded people out there who just will whatever they will. They think they can will whatever they want, and people just have to take it because it's their free will, it's their life. And we credit that, we enable that. So, for example, let's say that there is exploitation going on in a community somewhere in a village, and children, and not only children, but people are being harmed. Are you telling me now that you have to respect the privacy of those people over there and permit the evil to continue? You know what? That's why watchful people are so wise. There are some worldly people that are watchful. Watchful people, when they notice something doesn't end up, they admit it doesn't end up, and they take actions, either to bring themselves or some others in safety, or they report it. For example, if you know that someone has stabbed someone, let's say someone has been stabbed, almost died, and you know who did it. And that individual that did it is so proud, thinking he could get away with it. He thinks he has the right to, he justifies stabbing that other individual. Hold on a minute, so you allow such an individual who stabs someone else to just roam around freely? Okay, if you don't want them to go to jail, because you can see that they are malfunctioning and they need help, then at least report this so that they can get the help they need. Because they almost killed, he or she almost killed someone. But now you have people that keep quiet because they don't want to, they have this thing, snitches get stitches. What? So someone almost died because he or she has been stabbed? You know who the perpetrator is? You at least make sure that the perpetrator gets help so it never happens again. And also look after the victim so the victim can recover. But now you allow people that are heading towards the dark side, you allow them to have the space to just will whatever they want? Come on now. That's wicked. Okay, this rant has been over 20 minutes. Way too long. Just understand this. That this privacy idolatry that a lot of people have is not in agreement with Christ. And for you who's listening to this, you need to give that up. Give up that self-entitlement you have, because it's not in line with Christ, it's pride. And you know what Scripture says. God resists the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. Be humble enough to be watchful. Be humble enough to have mutual accountability towards others. Be humble enough to have to accept your natural responsibilities towards others. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. Okay? Don't be like Cain, who was only into his own expectations and he ended up hating and killing his brother, Abel. Because that's how a lot of people are, like Cain. Don't be like that. That being said, be at peace.